Today we are looking at the effects of student bullying on learning. To begin with a definition of bullying. Bullying is a misuse of power, it's ongoing and repeated, and it's something that causes harm to someone. There are different types of bullying. Here we're just looking at 6 types of bullying that we think would be necessary. Social and emotional alienation, pointing out difference in others, excluding others from groups, and spreading rumors. Physical bullying, any physical contact that hurts a person, like hitting, kicking, punching. Cyberbullying, sending pictures, messages, information using electronic media, computers, cell phones, any type of social media to cause harm to someone. Verbal bullying, name calling, offensive remarks about the person's religion, gender, ethnicity, appearance, or even socioeconomic status. Sexual bullying consists of repeated harmful or humiliating actions that target a person sexually. In extreme cases, sexual bullying opens the door for sexual assault. Prejudicial bullying is based on the prejudice children have towards people of different race, religion, or sexual orientation. This type of bullying can encompass all the types of bullying we spoke about before, and it's targeting others who are different from them and singling them out. Who are most likely to be bullied? Persons with disability, different gender, poverty and social status, ethnicity, linguistic or cultural differences, physical appearance, or sexual orientation, identity. The impact of bullying. Schools with bullying. When bullying continues and a school does not take action, the entire school climate can be affected. The school develops an environment with fear and disrespect. Students have difficulty learning, students feel insecure, and students dislike the school. So students who bully others, they feel powerless, they're jealous and frustrated, they lack empathy, seeking attention, can't relate to emotions. Students who are bullied feel hurt physically, mentally, and emotionally. They're scared to try new things, they have low self-esteem, depression, self-destructive behaviors like harming themselves or even suicide. They turn to drugs and alcohol, early sexual activity, and they have antisocial behaviors. In 2010, a UCLA study showed students who are bullied receive poor grades in class. They fear standing out and labeled as low achievers. They participate less and they fear being bullied. They show less academic improvement and unmotivated, and they show less attention from teachers. Observers of bullying. Students who see bullying happen may feel that they are unsafe in an unsafe environment. Effects may include a feeling of fear, powerless to act, guilty for not acting, and tempted to participate in the bullying. Let's look at some local, regional, and international statistics of bullying.
So I will be doing HFLE implementation in schools to stop bullying.
Bullying is not only physically and verbally abusive, but also negatively impacts on the emotional health and well-being of individuals, which directly discourages their learning process. J. Bleweston stated in his article published in 2001 entitled, "Creating Emotionally Safe Schools," "It is difficult to pay attention when you believe that you may be assaulted in the classroom. It is difficult to concentrate if you know that you will be extorted on the way to lunch." End quote. Since schools are places of learning, bullying must be nullified here to maximize students' learning process.
So as the saying goes, those who hurt others have themselves been hurt. I am trying to incorporate HFLE implementation into schools' curriculum to show how children's social and emotional development would be improved. To do so, we must have professional counseling for both the victim and the victimizer to go from bullies to buddies, and parental and community programs must be enlightened so homes and communities understand the signs of bullying and the steps to eradicate it.
By reforming school curriculum, to incorporate health and family life education as our mandatory subject across all school levels of education, school administrators choose to take the proactive approach to addressing the escalating impact of bullying on both socially and emotionally abused victims in the supportive and safe environment of the school compound. This is deemed as being fair and justified by stipulating clearly defined rules and the discipline matrix. HFLE is a life skills program that encourages and supports students in learning of how they are to prudently deal with life.
So in reforming school curriculum to incorporate HFLE, we have 4 key areas of growth and development in children. The first development step would be to develop students' skills on the best decisions to make when faced with life's problems. So if you look at a storyboard, we're seeing a young boy who posted a picture of himself dancing on Instagram. And Samuel commented that he looked pathetic and he should kill himself. The little 8-year-old boy took those comments to heart and actually committed suicide, which Samuel saw being reported over the TV. And in the report, it showed that this little boy didn't have any family. Samuel empathized because he himself didn't have family and regretted the comments that he made that caused this 8-year-old boy to commit suicide. So the moral of the story is to have an adequate safety and keep your thoughts to yourself, don't post them. The second development step would be to provide merited solutions to problems. Problems, whenever people are bullied, they fear going to school, they fear the kind of comments they would have on social media about themselves that might be embarrassing to them, and they fear being physically abused and taken advantage of in school. So in order to show all the emotional effects bullying has and develop students' critical thinking skills, a teacher might take those previous 2 storyboards as well as this storyboard and try to act it out in the classroom where different students take up different roles while role-playing. This is our next storyboard showing how someone is being victimized for their lunch money and he is willing to just give up his lunch money to the bully to avoid being beaten, and another student steps in to defend him and makes the bully go away. Now, in incorporating these kinds of role plays into the classroom, students can become engaged in the process of decision making while collaborating with the teacher to determine the best choices to make, collect information, investigate consequences, decide and evaluate the entire situation so as to make the best decisions. The 4th development step would be to effectively communicate these carefully derived solutions to all parties involved. So for example, in the previous slide where we talked about extortion of lunch money, or in this slide where we see Amy, who is a bright student, always having the correct homework, and Vera is a bully who copies her homework, and the teacher gives Vera the credit because she doesn't know she's copying from Amy. And in the night, Amy's bigger sister asks the little sister, "Why are you crying?" And the bigger sister realizes Amy is being advantaged for her homework. So the bigger sister comes up with a solution for Amy to write all the wrong answers to the homework. Vera copies the wrong answers. The teacher reprimands Vera and she admits to it not being her work but being copied from Amy. So again, students can be taught the skill of problem solving when they role play typical scenarios of bullying at schools, where they identify and redefine the problem, establish causes of the problem, analyze consequences of various solutions, choose the appropriate solutions, take action, and evaluate the action and all outcomes. The benefits of HFLE implementation are primarily to encourage students to have better relationships intrapersonally, to be more aware of these students' personal reactions to situations, to logically deal with the problem in a stepwise order of problem solving and not merely reacting based on their emotions, to improve on students' interpersonal relationships, and finally, to attain heightened levels of empathy, making students better able to cope with their emotions and stress-related factors.
The term philosophy is made up of 2 root words which are Greek in origin. The first is philo, which means love, and the second is sophi, which means wisdom. Philosophy is a love for wisdom. It encompasses the set of values that governs a person's life and daily social interactions.
There are 4 main branches of philosophy. The first one is metaphysics, which is the physical universe. Secondly, it's logic or reasoning, how you derive certain conclusions. Thirdly, we look at epistemology, which is the process of learning and discovery of knowledge. And fourthly, axiology or values and ethics, which is what would be most applicable to our topic today. Philosophy could be seen from either a teacher standpoint or a student standpoint. And today we really want to concentrate on the student-centered philosophies on education. There are three main forms of this. The first one being progressivism, which really looks at individuality and personal experience, how the student would feel about himself in a classroom setting or in a school in general. The second one is humanism, where the student is given a choice whether he decides to learn something or not, or learn it in a particular way or not. And the teacher is really just a facilitator or a guide in the classroom. And finally, there's constructivism, where the student will be building his own knowledge based on his prior knowledge and on self-reflection. So what would have happened during the day? How did I feel about this? How did I not feel about it? There are three main perspectives on bullying. The first one is the individual perspective, and this is where we see bullying as an individual psychological behavioral problem that the person has within himself. Secondly, there is the social ecological perspective, where we are seeing a problem with relationship dynamics, where there's unequal power sharing in that relationship. It could be between persons, it could be among groups, it could be between two separate groups, and that is the social aspect, and the context of it brings out the ecology part of it. And finally, there is the impact of bullying on education. We know that bullying has long-term and long-lasting negative impacts. The impacts are not the same in all individuals. The intended target of the bullying may not be actually the one who's affected, and it may not be that they'll be affected in the way that was intended. And the level of harm which is caused to a person is not the same in all persons. It depends on the person's value system, their personal resources which are available to them, and the support systems which surround them. Of course, every different person has a different set of these components. They have different values, they have different support systems, etc. We want to know about the philosophical theorists. What do they say about learning? And we look at two main ones. First, we look at Piaget. And Piaget proposes that the child is an independent individual, where intellectual growth would occur best through self-centered learning activities, and it is not dependent on external factors at all. We also want to look at Vygotsky, where he speaks about the child being a social being, and learning will occur only through social interactions. So looking at Vygotsky and Piaget, we're looking at individuality and social beings. We want to know how can our pedagogy be incorporated into the problem of bullying. And there are two main forms we can look at. There's the constructivist learning theory and there's the behavioral learning theory. Constructivist learning approach to bullying states, well, it promotes positive change through understanding of the person's individual self and of others. It explores the social and cultural factors which may cause bullying and which would be mitigating factors into reducing the impacts of that. But most importantly, it involves critical self-reflection. The behavioral learning approach, however, involves practical experience based on knowledge which will be delivered in the classroom. It emphasizes constant practice of a specific skill set, and it does not affect social and cultural positive factors. So the behavioral learning approach really just deals with the person himself who's being bullied and how it is that we are going to help him overcome this problem.
Psychology is the study of behavior and mind. It is an academic discipline and an applied science which seeks to understand individuals and groups by establishing general principles and researching specific cases.
Now, there are many different branches of psychology. Let's look at the link between Maslow's hierarchy of needs and bullying. Now, Maslow's hierarchy of needs tells us that our behavior is influenced by motives, which are merely hierarchical. What this means is that you cannot move to another level unless the first one is achieved. In terms of bullying and the physiological needs, there are reports where students will claim that their lunch money has been taken by bullies, and this in itself provides some ground for saying that the first level is a factor in influencing bullying behavior. Now, a student can have food, but if they don't feel a sense of safety and security, then this level has to be achieved. And sometimes the lack of safety and security originates from the home, maybe a violent home or the absence of one parent or both. And therefore they turn to bullying to find the safety and security. Only when you have achieved a feeling of safety and security, then you can feel love and belongingness, because you can build relationships. And when you have a trusting relationship, it means that you feel loved. The third and the fourth levels deal with the psychological needs. Once you feel a sense of love and belongingness, then you feel that you are wanted, and this increases your self-esteem. And once you have fulfilled all 4 levels, then self-actualization becomes a reality. Psychological factors contributing to bullying behavior. Why do people bully? They are jealous of you, psychiatric disorders, they have been victims of bullying themselves. It is a means of escaping their own problems, and sometimes they do it to gain popularity. Psychological effects of bullying, and let's look at the short-term effects on the victim. And these include a feeling of shame, sleep disturbance, eating disorders, low self-esteem, higher risk of illness, and psychosomatic symptoms. Effects on the bully: increased risk of substance abuse and poor school performance. In terms of the long-term effects, let's look at the victim first. Anxiety disorders, increased risk of suicidal thoughts and actions, poor health, chronic depression, post-traumatic stress disorder, self-destructive behavior, and difficulty trusting people. Effects on the bully: chronic depression, drug and alcohol abuse, suicidal thoughts and actions, and intimate partner violence. A study conducted in the US among high school students revealed that 41% of victims developed social anxiety, 37% had depression, 26% had suicidal thoughts, and 25% harmed themselves.
Good day, I will be looking at how bullying affects student learning from a sociological perspective. According to similar sociology, is the study of social groups on the basis of social interaction. My focus will be social interactions within the school's environment. There are 3 broad perspectives of sociology. Functionalist and Marxism or conflict theory are viewed as macro perspectives since they discuss all aspects of society, while interactionist is considered micro because it speaks of the self. Conflict theory was coined by Karl Marx, who purports that due to society's never-ending competition for finite resources, society will forever be in a state of conflict. In relation to our education system, we can see how it purports this social inequality. Have a look at the following video.
Of all that is holy, would you look at Karen Smith's gym clothes?
Of course, all the plastics from the same gym class. Where are the plastics?
They're teen royalty. If North Shore was Us Weekly, they would always be on the cover.
That one there, that's Karen Smith. She is one of the dumbest girls you will ever meet. Damien sat next to her in English last year.
She asked me how to spell orange.
That little one? That's Gretchen Wieners.
She's totally rich because her dad invented toaster strudel.
Gretchen Wieners knows everybody's business. She knows everything about everyone.
That's why her hair is so big. It's full of secrets.
Hey, what's happening? And evil takes a human form in Regina George. I'll be fooled, because she may seem like your typical selfish, backstabbing, slut-faced hoe bag, but in reality, she is so much more than that.
She's the queen bee.
From the video, we can therefore see that a social hierarchy exists within the school environment, and it is usually dominated by those students who are popular, and they tend to see students that belong to other social levels as threats. Bullies tend to come from higher up, and just as Marxism theory purports that the bourgeoisies tend to take from the proletariats within the school context, the deviants, the different, and odd students are often bullied as a reminder of their social position within the school. But what exactly is it that students are competing for? As seen, students tend to compete for social status, they compete for academic recognition, and they usually compete for attention, specifically within the classroom. How does all of this affect students' performance and their learning? Within the school environment, if a student is not comfortable, they therefore will not be able to focus, resulting in low academic performances. As my colleague explained earlier, the connection between Maslow's laws and in relation to students' needs, it is evident that implications to a student's mental health will evidently lead to lower academic performance. In conclusion, have a look at the following video.